How much do you believe?
President Donald Trump appeared on his first joint TV interview with Elon Musk, aired in prime time on Fox News Channel, which was pre-recorded and conducted by Sean Hannity. According to Assosicted Press, the president acknowledged his goals to rein down inflation and suggested that Musk's Department of Government Efficiency would find over $1 trillion of what the administration considers wasteful government spending. Trump mentioned during that same interview that Musk is probably not that happy with things like tax breaks for electric vehicles likely not being included in tax legislation now being discussed in Congress, but he said Musk didn't seek special treatment for Tesla. "I haven't asked the president for anything, ever," Musk added. Asked about potential conflicts of interest between Musk's governmental efforts and his businesses and how they will be handled, Trump said he won't be involved, and Musk said he'd recuse himself. Musk has drawn criticism from Democrats in Congress and others for the methods he and his team at DOGE are using to cut spending, including foreign aid, and eliminate jobs across the bureaucracy. The joint interview follows Musk's appearance with Trump in the Oval Office last week, when both defended Musk's approach to federal cost-cutting.
How much do you believe, Elon, you've identified in waste, fraud, abuse, corruption now, and how much do you anticipate you will?
Sure. I think
1%. No, because it's so massive. This is huge money.
So what we found now is 1%.
We're just got
as
started.
Good as they are, they're not going to find some contract that was crooked, crooked as hell. I mean, there's going to be so much that isn't found. But what is found, I think he's going to find $1 trillion.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think it's a very small percentage compared to what it is.
I mean, I haven't asked the president for anything ever.
And if it comes up, how will you handle it?
Well,
he won't be involved.
Yeah, I'll recuse myself if it is.
If there's a conflict, he won't be involved.
Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't want that, and he won't want it.
Right, and obviously I'm getting a sort of a daily proctology exam here. It's not like I'll be getting away from something in the dead of night.
Welcome to D.C. If you want a friend, get a dog.
Donald Trump pushed back Tuesday against Ukraine's objections to being excluded from talks between the U.S. and Russia in Saudi Arabia aimed at ending the war in eastern Ukraine. According to Associated Press, he also seemed to suggest that Ukraine was to blame for a war that began only after Russia invaded that country. Speaking to reporters from his Mar-a-Lago estate, Trump said, "Today I heard, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it." Trump didn't mention that Russia has also failed to end the war it began when it invaded its neighbor. A half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, Trump said, echoing his frequent claim that he could have prevented the Russian invasion. Trump said he thought he had a good chance to end Russia's war in Ukraine, but bristled at suggestions that the US and Russia had begun negotiations to end fighting occurring without Ukraine playing a role.
Do you have any message for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their sides. You have those magnificent golden domes that are shattered, will never be replaced. You can't replace them. 1,000-year-old domes that are so beautiful, you can't replace that. A whole civilization has changed because of what. So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago. You could have made a deal. This is one that could have made a deal. There was no talk of this during the Trump administration. Putin would have never, ever done it. And by the way, we wouldn't have had October 7th. You know that. We wouldn't have had October 7th. And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue. What he was so bad for this. He was so bad, so pathetic, so sad.
How would you counter the perception, because Russia's pushing for this, obviously, they don't really hold true elections, that would be a capitulation of some sort. How would you guard against potentially Russia installing a puppet government? And then finally, how would that new election have an impact on getting Zelensky to sign the rare earth minerals deal?
Look, you have leadership, and I like him personally. He's fine. But I don't care about personally. I care about getting the job done. You have leadership now that's allowed a war to go on that should have never even happened, even without the United States. Look, we had a president who was grossly incompetent. He had no idea what he was doing. He said some very stupid things, like going in for portions and all of the things. He made a lot of bad statements, but he's grossly incompetent, and I think everyone knew that. This is something that should have never happened, would have never happened. And I used to discuss it with Putin. President Putin and I would talk about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, I will tell you that. But there was never a chance of him going in. And I told him, you better not go in. Don't go in. Don't go in. And he understood that. He understood it fully. But I'm only interested, I want to see if I can save maybe millions of lives. This could even end up in a World War III. I mean, to be honest with you, you've been hearing now Europe is saying, well, I think we're going to go in and we're going to go. All of a sudden, you're going to end up in World War III over something that should have never happened. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Press.